Welcome to tonight's show. I am your host, Tina Dawson, the owner of True Blue Designs, and it is truly an honor to be before you this evening. I ask that you like and share and let everybody know that we're on the air to bring you some inspiring and educational information. Now, this week, someone had asked me, what is the true purpose of your show? And I want to make sure I cover that at the beginning. The purpose of the show is to shine the light on those in and out of our community who exemplify integrity and professionalism. These guests add positivity to this media platform while imparting knowledge to enhance the world around us as a whole. So we're live on Facebook and on YouTube, and it's easier to find a lot of the previous videos on YouTube. And I ask that you go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is True Blue Designs, and like and share. The purpose of that is to make sure that it's like a library, a living library of information. I've had people to call me and ask for our CPA, my bookkeeper. Even a couple of weeks ago, we had someone that talked about cutting the cord to cable TV, and he's already been out talking to people that end up seeing him on the show or heard about him. So make sure that you like and share and understand that we're here to inspire and educate you every Wednesday at 7. Now, let's talk about tonight's guest. Let me introduce Mr. Corey Hambrick. Historically, law enforcement's relationship with their minority communities have been strained. Systemic racism is a nationwide problem, and there is need for police reform. So tonight's guest will discuss the topic and present ways that we can strengthen the police community relationships. So please help me give a warm welcome to tonight's guest, Mr. Corey Hambrick. Hello.
Hey Tina, how you doing?
Doing good. Thank you so much for saying yes and being on tonight's show.
No, thank you so much for having me on the show tonight. And I would say yes to you. First of all, everybody don't know we're neighbors. We're in the same neighborhood. But don't worry, I'm not going to tell everybody where we live. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell everybody where we live. But I just want to say that I am honored that you would reach out to me to get my perspective on some critical things that's taking place in our community, in our nation, believe it or not, in our world. And so I want to first congratulate you for having the courage, if you will, to be so much of a community advocate. I see some of the things that you do, your bubbly spirit, your willingness to always help everybody is something that is just contagious. And I just want to encourage you to continue to do what you're doing, because people are watching. Sometimes it's the negativity that gets all of the hype, the promotion, and sometimes it's the negative things that people like to discuss most. However, it is things that you have been covering, topics, subject matter that you've been covering, that really the silent majority takes and apply it to their lives. And so I want to say congratulations to you for the work that you do. And so thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I couldn't have thought of anyone else to have on this show to talk about this topic. Now, let me say this, though. This is just one topic that we can talk about. I am definitely going to have you on before the end of the year again.
Okay.
To talk about, because you have your hand in a lot of things, and those other things that we're not going to talk about tonight are just as important. The information that you can share in those areas are just as important as the topic that we're going to talk about tonight. So I'm definitely going to have you back. So get your yes in your heart. I'm going to call
We're
you.
family. We're family. Anything I can do, just let me know. I'm just a phone call away.
Well, thank you so much. So let's start off by telling the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, and so I'm going to tell them about myself. I a lot about myself, but I do want to give this disclaimer tonight
Okay.
that, and you'll hear me say it multiple times, just because I don't want to receive any nasty emails or anything like that. And at the whatever views that I discuss and I give tonight, it is not the views or the official views or views at all of the City of Conyers Police Department.
Okay.
We are officers, any officer. One of the things that we all understand that when they wear the badge, they do represent their particular agency. But we're also humans, and we have our own thoughts and we have our own perspectives. Never to be misconstrued with that of any agency that I am or have been a part of in the past, the present, or even the future. So I just want to make sure that everything that I discuss tonight is based on my life's experience as a man, as a black man who has been blessed and privileged to be able to work and to serve my community in terms of law enforcement. But we have strict policies and things in place. We have people like PIOs, those are public information officers, that really gives the official view of the police department. And so tonight you have me on as somewhat of a person who I've been blessed and privileged to be a part of that community. But I can honestly speak from the heart and speak my thoughts, but never to be misconstrued with the thoughts of the police department that I am associated with. So just wanted to make sure I said that.
Yeah, I understand.
Yes, God. I don't want to make sure. So I want to make sure that we say that. But nevertheless, yes, a little bit about myself. Like what? What you want to know about me?
Where are you from?
Okay.
Where you go to school? Your
Okay.
education?
So I'm from Atlanta. I am a Grady baby. As we don't have a lot. People say they're from Atlanta, but they ain't from Atlanta.
No.
I'm from Atlanta. Okay. I was born at Grady downtown, the big hospital you can see on the right hand side, from 75, 85 north and south. I was born in that hospital. I was raised in the Kirkwood community.
Okay.
Off of I-20, when the streets were Boulevard, not Hosea Williams. And so some of the streets that intersect that is Memorial Drive, some streets you may know, Moreland Avenue. So just some boulevards. So some of the streets, just like Grant Park and all that. So I'm from the Kirkwood community, right there off of Maynard Terrace, that runs Boulevard. I think that runs east and west. So I was raised there, and later on, my family moved us out to DeKalb County, where after living in Marietta for a while, living in Athens, Georgia for a while, we moved back to DeKalb County, and I went to Stone Mountain Junior High. Then I went to Redan High School. I graduated from Redan High School in 2001, and then I went to Alabama A&M University, where I'm a Bulldog. It's an HBCU right there in Huntsville, Alabama, North Alabama, where the Space and Rocket Center is, NASA. Of course, Redstone Arsenal is there. Yes, so a lot of people may be familiar about, Huntsville. So I went there in 2001. I majored in political science and minored in criminal justice. I went in 2001 and I graduated in 2006. Don't judge me. It was 5 years. It's okay. I know some people doing some math. They're doing some math. Wait a minute. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But I completed it. Got a degree. A degree. I got a bachelor's in political science, minor in criminal justice. Then we moved after college. Moved back here to ultimately the Metro Atlanta area, where I later ended up becoming a police officer serving with the City of Conyers Police Department. And while I was there, I acquired a master's degree in public administration. So we were fortunate to be able to do that. Got married to my beautiful wife, Corey Hambrick. We have 3 children all together. And it's Mariah, Chloe, and CJ. Corey Jr. I call him CJ. And I later ended up I was fortunate enough, the chairman of our county, Chairman Oz Nesbitt, gave me a wonderful opportunity to be able to serve as the chief of staff, and he presented me to the board, and Commissioner Doreen Williams, Dr. Williams, as well as Commissioner Sherry Washington, Esquire. They acquiesced, and they voted me unanimously to be the chief of staff for our county government. Served there for 4 years, and I resigned at the end of last year, the top of this year. And so I've been very fortunate enough to be able to work in the community and to see a lot of things. And so once again, that's a little bit about me.
Okay, look, I'm learning so much about my neighbor.
Yes. I saw somebody comment. I think it was a dude say, "Hey, Pastor."
Yeah.
So
mention that. Go ahead and mention that a little bit.
Well, that's the reason why. I'm gonna say that because somebody, he didn't talk about him being I got people. So I am.
You
want me to talk about that?
Look, just let them know what you do. Tell them a little bit about that.
Okay. So I am also the founder. We have a church here in Conyers, Georgia. It's called the Life Church Christian Center. Mm-hmm. And we founded that ministry in 2011. This year will be 10 years in August. And man, we have been such a blessed congregation. A lot of people have attended our church, been members of our church, have come through our church. And all members, both past, present, and future, man, our church is just, it's not the biggest church in the community. It's not certainly not the smallest church, but we are a mid-sized church that we have an intimate feel in terms of loving each other as family, as worship family, but also as community partners in this particular community and beyond. We have people that travel all the way from West Atlanta, believe it or not.
Wow.
Hampton, Georgia. And so we're just blessed, man. So we have that church. And because of that, I was fortunate enough to where I was cast on a season of what they call Preachers of Atlanta. It is, yes, that's what I thought you was talking about. You want to talk about that? All right. We ain't got to talk. No, okay. Well, we ain't got to talk about that. Keep moving.
So let me ask you this. So what was it that drew you to pursue a career in law enforcement?
Growing up, one of my favorite movies growing up was a movie called Cop and a Half. It was Burt Reynolds and this little black boy that, and I forget his name, but he lived with his grandmother, and his all-time dream was to be a cop. And I could watch that movie over and over and over. I think I'm gonna pull it up and let my kids watch it again. It's called Cop and a Half. And the little boy, he witnessed a crime, and they put him in protective custody. And Burt Reynolds, who was a really high speed, low drag type of detective, was responsible for babysitting this young man. So he put him in his cop car and he drove him around, and it was the dream for this young man. And he was able to help the police. So ever since then, I always just had a, fascination, I guess you will, you could say, for being a police. The blue lights, the sirens, running red lights, driving fast, locking up bad guys, and everything above that you would think of being a cop. That was always my dream, to be able to do that. And I followed that dream.
So in your bio, you mentioned that you were a field training officer.
Yes.
Okay. And my question is, how closely does the training and evaluation mirror that of what officers deal with in the field? The training versus reality.
Okay. No, that's a very good question. And it's a very relevant question, in that the idea is, a lot of people, they may feel as if policing is customer service.
Right. That's the way to put it.
Yeah. Policing is customer service. We say, and it's like a cliche with law enforcement, that law enforcement is there to serve and to protect. And that's exactly what it is. When we actually engage or we arrive on a call, the nature of that call, depending on whose perspective you're looking at it from, decides whether we are merely serving in the idea of providing customer service, or we're protecting the property of someone, protecting the interest of someone from a civil matter, or physically protecting a person who's being assaulted.
Mm-hmm.
So law enforcement is customer service. The reason why I said that in answering your question is when you approach it from a training standpoint, everyone should know how to be decent as a human being.
Okay.
You give respect, you get respect. And when individuals come into law enforcement, the idea is to vet them so that they have the common decency of a human to
Mm-hmm.
be able to provide customer service. Well, the field training program, it enhances, if you will, the ability of the person to just be a customer service representative of law and order.
Mm-hmm.
And it teaches them the technicalities, the do's, the don'ts. It teaches them the tactics. It teaches them the methods that they can use to be a better customer servant representative, if you will, of law enforcement. And so the short answer is what you learn in the field training program
Mm-hmm.
enhances your ability that you already had because you were vetted to be a human being, to be respectful, and to treat people with dignity. The field training program just enhances it from giving you the resources, the tools, the knowledge, and the wisdom on how to get yourselves out of diverse situations. So they do mirror what you do in field training. You should operate and replicate those things in the real world. However, your ability to be a person, to reason, to know what's reasonable, if you will, is what the police department depends on you to do in situations that field training did not cover. Because field training is not exhaustive. And what I mean by that is you're not going to cover every single situation in field training.
Right.
That's where your ability to be a person, to be a human, to make rational decisions, to make reasonable decisions in the heat of the moment comes into play.
I end up yesterday I was talking to a friend and we were pulling up some information and we saw something that it was some type of report that came out and the report was saying that their opinion of what may be the problem is that some of the field trainers have antiquated ways of of teaching and so as a field trainer, I'm thinking that when I read that, I thought that, well, if the person that is training you is not doesn't have good character,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then it could it be a situation where they may be teaching bad habits, or have you ever seen anything like that?
Well, we're all human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people do have, we have to afford people, our leaders in our community, of course, to whom much is given and much is required. And there are occupations or some occupations or professions where mistakes you know, um, cannot be afforded to be made, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's impossible to have that expectations and humans are involved because humans, they err all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And this conversation is one that is difficult, that we don't like to have when it comes to race relations and police. But the truth of the matter is, it's there. We have to have them.
Right.
And people are erred. Sometimes cops are erred. Sometimes the individuals who they're dealing with is erred. So the question is, going back to your point, yes, there are times where a field training officer may be having a bad day or may see things in an antiquated way.
Mm-hmm.
However, police departments, and I happen to know that, ones that I have been a part of, they have systems in place where they try to detect when an officer is having a human moment or dealing with something in his or her personal life. And they try to give that officer the counseling that they need, talking to any professional that they want. So that can even happen to field training officers.
Mm-hmm.
I've had bad days, but this is the thing. Once again, do you remember when I talked about that being reasonable and
Mm-hmm.
being a person? As a true field training officer, the department, they will vet that individual you interview for that position. And even though you may be having a bad day, the department trusts you to still train the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to separate your opinions, your biases that you may have, because we all have biases, whether we believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to separate that from effectively training an officer so that he or she could execute their duties in a fair and just way. So your friend is absolutely right. I think when it comes to training, and that topic of training is a huge topic when it comes to this particular discussion,
Right.
because ideas over a period of time change, technology changes, our society changes, our culture changes, and believe it or not, our systems, our community systems change.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as everything else is evolving, as everything else is conceptualizing, as everything else is growing around us and maturing, so does the methods and the methodology of the way that we police the community. But not only the way we police the community, those individuals who are training the next generation of individuals who are policing the community. That's a very, very relevant perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I agree with it.
Okay. Now you mentioned several times about the vetting process that the police
Mhm,
officers are vetted. So
mhm.
I have two questions.
Okay.
During the vetting process, A, do police officers go through psychiatric evaluation? And then number two, is there a like a background check or say previous history? Say if the police officers come into your police department, but they work, say, in Chicago, right? So do they take into account their past history with, say, we'll say Chicago, the police department? And the reason why I'm asking is because a lot of times what we've heard on the television is that some of these police officers have had a history
Hmm.
of doing things. And we're going to end up getting, that's going to be another question I was going to ask about,
Okay.
it seems like things are looked over. But when you talk about the vetting process, A, do they go through a psychiatric evaluation? And B, is their past history taken into account?
Okay. So once again, I will say this: all of the views that I'm expressing is my opinion as
Right.
Corey Hambrick. It is
Yes.
not the views of a police department that I am
Right.
associated with in
Right.
the past, the present, or the future.
Right. Okay. Hey, I get it.
Eh,
You said mid time. I get
Yes,
it.
yes. In my experience, I will say this: in my experience going through the process in terms of vetting, and even now, I mean, you
Mhm.
said it before, but I will say that I speak. I'm not currently employed full time with the City of Conyers Police Department. However, I am a reserve officer there, so all of my training is tracked, is kept up to par. I train with regular officers. Still have arrest powers, and a reserve is basically volunteer. You go to the police department and you still have all the powers and responsibilities police department as a police officer. However, I don't have to go there every single day for to get paid as a regular job. Now,
Okay.
I said that to say, going through the process, I am safe to say this, that yes, number one, when I was hired on, you saw a counselor, you saw a psychologist,
Mm.
to make sure that your mental stability is efficient, is stable enough to be able to handle very critical life and death situations.
Hmm.
So I do know it is the common practice for police departments to make sure that the person is mentally sound to be able to do the job. So
Okay.
the first question that you had, yes, that is true. Secondly, question that you had, the vetting process is a background check or history done.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, it
Okay.
is. Anytime a person seeks to go to a police department and they are either a lateral transfer or they are what we call pre-service, they are already certified, because you just can't go to a police department to get hired. You have to be certified by that particular state that places the authority on you, vests you with authority to be able to take someone's freedom and to make arrests. We call that being duly sworn, where
Okay.
you give an oath, you raise your right hand, and you swear to, protect the Constitution, to uphold the Constitution of the state and of the nation, in order to be able to execute those duties. And through that process, they do a background check, a thorough background check, to where if you are pre-serviced, if you served in a police department somewhere else, they will contact that police department and they will pull what we call your IA file. That is your internal affairs file. And anytime an officer has a use of force, or anytime that the officer has been disciplined for any number of reasons, then that information goes inside of a file, and
Mhm.
it stays with the officer, and it stays in the file at that police department. If it is the policies of the receiving police department to do a thorough background check, then that police department, in their office of professional standards, or their recruiting office, that's recruitment office that's responsible for background checks, they
Mhm.
will contact that previous police department, and that previous police department will allow the receiving police department to view those files.
Okay.
So if I was to go to work at, let's say, Snellville Police Department, then Snellville would contact the city of Conyers and ask to review my IA files,
Mhm.
or my employee file. And they will see every time I've been written up, every time, I've been disciplined, for what reason, what was the situation. A whole write-up is done, investigation. And that information is made available to the receiving police department so that they're able to see that information.
Right.
Does
Right.
that make sense? Does that
Yes.
make sense? Okay.
Yes, it does. It does.
Okay.
So with that in mind, let's discuss the embedded racism that has gone unchecked in the police departments. And there's been a lot of stories about officers who have seen different things go on and they speak up about it, but then they're later punished. So let's talk about that topic, and then what are some of your opinions on how to change that?
Now, when you say racism, I want you to define that more. Racism that goes into the department. What's the exact question?
Well, say for example, you have an officer that, say you have an officer that's patrolling with, you have a black officer that's patrolling with a white officer, right? And then you have a situation similar to George Floyd that, not as bad, but it's pull over, or say the black police officer sees that the white police officer does something and he feels that it's racist, right? And then it's a pattern, and then he calls it out, says something to the authority, people upper management
Mhm.
about it. But
Okay.
then there's situations where you know um, he gets backlash or punished because he spoke out about different things that he's seen.
Okay. Okay. And so once again, your question for that is, what's the exact question that you have?
Um, you know, you have embedded racism that goes on in the police department, and
Okay, got that.
my question is, what is your opinion on
Okay.
how it can be changed?
Okay.
You
Okay. Well, so first of all, I will say this, that I don't think any of us, even when it comes to Black Lives Matter, I don't think that there is no disagreement that there are good cops and then there are bad cops. I
yeah,
think we all know that.
yeah,
Is that fair to
yeah.
say, right?
That's fair to say.
All
Mhm.
right. Um, because of that, officers, they are held to account, for their actions, and a good police department will make sure that in dealing with an officer, be it black, brown,
Mhm.
gray, red, purple, or whatever, is dealt with.
Right.
It has been my experience, in the agencies that I've been fortunate to work for, where when it comes to holding an officer responsible for an action he or she has done,
Hmm.
from the command standpoint, it doesn't matter what your race is. Like if
Right.
you did
Right.
something
On your
bad,
phone.
if you did something bad, you're going to get in trouble.
Right.
However, there is a case law, and I don't want to give too much of this, but if you research, it's called Graham versus Connor,
Okay.
and it had to do with a man who pulled up at a gas station. He ran inside because and ran back outside, got in the car, and the car sped off. The officer saw that, and the officer pulled the car over and got the man out the car, and it goes from there, you know, using excessive force or whatever. Well, what the officer didn't know was that the man was having a diabetic attack at that particular time, and he was running inside the gas station to see if they had something, but he, you know, didn't have the money or something, so he was trying to hurry up and get to a nearby friend's house. And the officer pulled him over, and one thing led to another. The officer went back to the gas station to figure out if the gas station got robbed, because it was reasonable based on knowledge, what we call knowledge, training, and experience, that most people pull up to a gas station, their car is parallel to the door, they run in, they rob the place, they get out, and then they speed off. Well, officer saw that,
Right.
and, you know, sought to pull the car over, and did, and they roughed him up, as the story goes. And so from that, the Supreme Court ruled that essentially the reasonable factor came about because of that. What's reasonable to another officer that's on scene? Would that officer have done the same thing? And we've seen now in police departments, because of George Floyd, undoubtedly, but other police departments probably already had this in place, to where you even call out the misactions or the misdoings of other officers if their actions is not reasonable, period. It's simple, right? And now you see police departments going to policies that states it will be the policy of this particular police department, that if an officer sees another officer acting in such a way that is not reasonable, that is not consistent with the training of the particular police department, then you call that officer out, and you let someone know in supervision that this happened, so that that can be investigated. When we talk about racism in police departments, I'm going to go deeper than that. You know, a police department is made up of individuals, and individuals have biases, right?
Yes.
And because individuals have biases and prejudices, then it becomes the responsibility of the department to, once they know that, to be able to address that. But you can address what you don't know.
That's right.
In some police departments that have been now studied by the Department of Justice, or investigated, if you will, then their actions and their stats would lend or lead an individual to think that, you know, the culture of the police department has now become toxic as it relates to racism. It then becomes the responsibility of the mayor, the city council, to work with the command staff, the police chief and his or her command staff, to make sure that, you know, when if they know that individual officers have certain type of biases, or if they are racist, if there is racism going on, then they have to rid the police department of that officer, if the goal of the police department is to be a just, unbiased, fair police department when it comes to being able to enforce law in that particular jurisdiction. What am I simply saying, Tina? I'm saying that although there are police departments are filled up with individuals.
Right.
And if the police department does not do a great job in trying and identifying individuals that are toxic, then the police department will get blamed for being a racist police department.
Right.
Racism does occur in people's lives.
Yeah.
People are a part of police departments.
Right.
I'm saying to say that a whole police department is racist, sometimes we make those comments emotionally, and I understand why we make those comments, because of what we're seeing in the public's eye. When everybody in that police department, you can't say that it's racist, because it's Black officers that's a part of that police department as well. So I think what we have to do, here it is, to change it, is we have to have more than just training. We have to have those honest conversations Police officers, if they know that they have other officers that are racist, be it a black officer that's racist against white, or a white police officer that's racist against black people,
Right.
we have to be able to identify those police officers, and really investigate whether or not they are policing with biases.
Mm-hmm.
Now, believe it or not, people can be racist or have biases and don't show it.
That's true.
My thing is, as long as you don't allow your biases to affect the way that you apply the law as it
Mm-hmm.
relates to fulfilling your obligation on the job, I don't have a problem with you. That's a personal opinion, right?
Right.
But when you begin to allow your biases to influence your decisions, and you apply law that is not just and unfair, then now I have a problem. The community have a problem, has a problem, and that officer has to be dealt with. So my idea of this is really speaking to, and I believe this is where you were going, speaking to the culture of
Mm-hmm.
policing today. And as you stated, with the field training program, it has evolved because crime trends have evolved. So
Right.
when crime trends have evolved, then now you have to change, and here comes the evolution of new tactics to be able to address that particular crime trend. To say that racism does not exist in our society is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
To say that racism does not exist in the systems of our society, to include government,
Yeah.
to include the private sector, to include the corporate America in the private sector, in our churches, believe it or not, it's sad to
Yeah.
say, but
Yeah.
also it's infiltrating in areas of police department. It is,
Mm-hmm.
because now people's personal customs, their personal convictions, they
Yeah.
now allow it to influence the way they do their very communal and professional job. And so, number one, we have to identify those officers and deal with them. Number one. Number
Right.
two, we have to make sure that the command and that the views of the police department, it mirrors that of a just, fair, unbiased agency that we trust to be able to apply the laws in our various communities. And then last but not least, we have to change the culture. The culture of policing has to be, modified. Number one, we have to make sure that in the vetting process, right, that we are hiring people, or we are allowing people to join our particular agencies that really do have the heart of a servant.
Right.
Someone that really, I mean, are you doing it for just a paycheck? Are you doing it for just a paycheck? Or are you doing it? And I hope people share this, because this is very, very important. Are
Right.
you doing, what's your motivation? It just can't be to make money, because you
Right.
can do anything to make money, but do you really want to serve people? Do you really want to help people? And it goes back to that customer service ideology that I spoke to you about previously. If you come in wanting to serve people, customer service, right? Then
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to have those problems. You're not going to see black, white, or Hispanic or Asian. You're going to see an individual, and you're going to want to render whatever type of help you can help or give to them. Now, when it comes to changing the culture, now I'm talking about dealing with the individual.
Right.
I believe that, for instance, and these names come out of nowhere, right? So I'm going to say, let's say, for instance, Amanda. We'll say Amanda, because most of my friends, I do have a white friend named Amanda, so I'm gonna use Amanda.
Okay.
In elementary school, her name was Amanda. Okay,
Okay.
so she's white. She's a Caucasian female. Let's say Amanda was raised in North Fulton,
Mm-hmm.
Alpharetta, Roswell,
Mm-hmm.
and then let's take Demarcus. I have a black friend named Demarcus.
Okay.
Demarcus was raised in Zone 6 or Zone 1 of Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
You have Amanda, who was raised in Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
You have Demarcus, who was raised in the hood.
Okay.
They both grow up and they want to be police officers.
Mm-hmm.
But you take Amanda and you put Amanda now in Zone 1. And you take Demarcus and you put Demarcus in Roswell.
In Roswell. Uh-huh.
Okay, now you have two different cultures, quote unquote, speaking social economically, right? Statistically,
Yeah.
if you will receive that,
Yeah.
patrolling or serving opposite communities. So now you have DeMarcus who in Roswell and he handles a domestic call. He goes there. And for where he's from, he's heard people argue and fight in the streets all day. It's a walk in the park for DeMarcus. It's whatever. So when he gets there, he does officer safety because where he's come from, he's dealt with situations like that. Maybe
Right.
not those particular people, but he's comfortable with that, right?
Right.
He's comfortable with that. He knows how to deal with a situation because he's seen it before, and maybe he's had the opportunity to maybe to be with diverse people, so he understands and he can communicate. Well, you take Amanda and she goes on a call in zone 1, and when she gets there, she probably or particularly probably hadn't been in that situation before in her child or adolescent or maybe even adult life, right? But she's like, she has a good heart.
Right.
She wants to serve. She's not a bad person, and she's not prejudiced, by the way. Okay.
Okay.
Let's say, for instance, somebody walks, same call, a domestic violence situation, and somebody walks outside of the house, but it's the man, it's the black male, and he's mad and he's irate, right? And he's mad, and so he balls up his fist and he starts walking towards Amanda because he didn't know no one called the police. So he's mad at what's going on in the house, but he's walking towards Amanda, and he looks aggressive. Now, if Amanda has never experienced something like that before, she may, and she can articulate, she thought that he was going to hurt her.
Right.
And she may pull out a weapon. He may see the weapon, and now his mental situation kicks in because every time he's seen the gun pointed at him, he goes into defense mode because of where he lives.
Right.
Amanda, she pulls the trigger because she takes him walking towards her as a pre-assault indicator, and she shoots and she kills him. Now we have riots in Atlanta, right? Whereas we can't truly say the intent of this man, but based on what Amanda saw, he was going to come and try to hurt her. She may get off, she may not get off, but we have to talk about the intent. The intent. I said Amanda's not racist.
Right.
The intent was for her to protect herself, right?
Right.
And she did it the way that she felt like she could have done it because she probably hadn't been in a situation like that before. Now, why, Corey Hambrick, did you bring up this? What I think we should start doing is putting DeMarcus with Amanda's before we release Amanda's in DeMarcus type neighborhoods. And I think that we should put Amanda's with DeMarcus before we release DeMarcus in Amanda's type neighborhoods. In other words, I'm saying that if I'm going into a neighborhood where there's a lot of Hispanics, it's probably good that I train with a Hispanic officer so I can understand the body language of these people.
Right.
What we're doing is we're putting people in communities and expecting them to patrol and serve these communities when there's a potential that during the FTO program, they didn't train with a hood officer like Corey Hambrick could be. You know what I mean? Like, if I was in a situation like that, I would say, oh, man, don't worry about it. Look, let's say his name is Brandon. Hey, Brandon, you need to step back, bro. You need to step back. Because right now, you need to walk up on me like that, right?
Right.
And we have this thing called verbal judo where you use these things if you can. And let me just say this now. There are times where you cannot.
Right.
Being out there and understanding it, there are times where you don't have the time, to de-escalate a situation because the situation is escalating very quickly. And it's evident that your life is in danger. My name is Corey, but I still got a mama, a daddy, a wife, a sister, a brother, and I got children. They want me to come home too. Right. But when you're out there, sometimes people don't see that. They see just the badge. We sign up for it. We get that. But what I'm saying is changing the culture is being able to identify when we have different people come through the doors of the police department to know that they may be, white, black, Hispanic, or Asian. Use those individuals to teach about the culture of their particular race, especially if this is the demographic that's going to be policed in any community. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I hope
Yes,
that does.
it does. It
That's
does.
my idea. That's Corey
It,
Hambrick's
it
idea.
does
Things we should do.
because I think that's you know, with the things that are going on in the news today, what you just described, you know, is that's what we think is going on, that they're putting people in different communities that have not been trained to be able to handle the different situations that come up, because all of the communities are different, right? So they all respond
Correct.
differently. And if you're not used to how that community responds, like you said, that officer in their mind could think one thing, but because they're not from that community, it really means another, and then it goes haywire.
80% of all problems, my mom and wife and people in my life have told me, is communication.
Yeah.
Is communication. And if communication is off, I could be communicating one thing with my body that you're not getting with your training, and then something drastic happens when it was really never the intent of either individual. And I think that's what we're missing. This is the United States of America. It is a melting pot. There are many different cultures, many different customs, and we have to just realize that. We have to embrace that, even when it comes to professions as critical and as important as law enforcement.
Corey, when I go to work, my main concern, my biggest concerns are the traffic, trying to get to work on time. But as an officer of color, how do you relate to that? What are your biggest concerns, or as a police officer, let's just say that, what goes through the minds of police officers, when they go out every day, because their concerns are totally different. I know one is making it home.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
That's a good question. As a Black police officer, you deal with many different things. You deal with certain people that say, you know what, I'm praying for you, because they know that the job in and of itself, and hats off to all of those officers that do this day by day, every single day. Because the truth of the matter is, somebody breaking your house, you want the police to show up. Right? If you're involved in a car accident, you want somebody to come take a report. So I don't think it is that we want to get rid of police. I think the police reform is trying to find ways, and believe it or not, there are some police departments, there are some officers that welcome this idea of reforming, and that's not a bad word. Defunding, there's two different methods of thought on that. Some people think it's taking away totally all the money, but then some people think another form of thought is being able to direct some of the funds that the police department has for additional trainings or resources, like mental health professionals and things of that nature. So some may say, as a Black police officer, we're just praying for you. Some people don't even see that you're Black. Just, I'm praying for you. Thank you for what you do for us. Then, as a Black police officer, some Black police officers feels as if the community may call them sellouts, that you are, when that's this man's job, his occupation. And for the right one, some of them feel as if it's their ministry. Like for me, policing is a ministry. I've now shifted my focus, not just the actual community in policing, but the actual officers themselves, because there are a lot of good officers that are scared to go to work. And somebody, will potentially take something out on them that as an individual, they themselves are not responsible for. So, there are varying thoughts in that. There's some officers now that want to quit, right? And so now, when there's a deficiency in manpower as it relates to police officers, then criminals take advantage of that, and then crime rates skyrocket. So it's a subject, it's a topic that is very sensitive, but does deserve duality of opinion. There's a fine balance that has to be done, or analyzed, if you will. So because of that, it's really hard. Some days, you feel like you're doing your community a great service, but then some days, you can get beat up by people out there of their thoughts of something that happened, in 4 or 5 states away. So you have to have the right mental capacity You have to have the right understanding, the right approach as a police officer. Police officers now, they're not only expected to take care of your situation,
Mhm.
but to do it with a level head, while at the same time watching their back about somebody that want to do something stupid just to get some camera time. I mean, we're all humans, and we deserve to be treated as humans. But
Right.
aside from the officers that are bad officers or make decisions that does not necessarily represent the culture of their police departments, then there are other officers that their policing every single day does represent the culture
Right.
and the tenor of their particular agency. And as an officer, that goes through my mind every single day, that I am out there or when I'm training, that I'm praying now for the officers that does it every single day, to be able to keep a level mind, that their families are healthy, that that they're dealing with things in their own lives. But not
Mhm.
only that, how are they perceived when they come to work?
Yeah.
Having to type a report, but at the same time look over your shoulder, or when you come on a call, having to make sure your partner and you are keyed in to make sure that you're looking out for each other, because everybody don't have genuine
Right.
motives.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, how can I best educate myself on laws as it relates to interactions with officers?
I think that police departments now, in my opinion, a lot of them are, once again, everything that I say does not represent
The
the
disclaimer.
thoughts or the methodology or the policy of, doesn't represent the mindset of the city of Conyers Police Department. This is Corey.
It is Corey. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
I feel as if police departments would be opened for individuals like you that want to know more to just come. Just
Hmm.
come. Ask questions. Spend time with the officers. Ask to go on a ride along. Once we're finished with this COVID thing,
Right.
fill out the paperwork. They'll do a background check on you. Ask to get in the police car with a officer, or a community friendly police department
Okay.
that they do not mind, because they don't have anything to hide. They're doing things right. They're
Right.
saying things right. They're representing the culture and the profession right. My mom always told me, if you're doing right, you don't have anything to hide.
And yeah. That's
Right. So go and ask them, can I get in the car and can I listen to the calls? Can I see how people are reacting to police officers? And then you form your own decision, so that when you get on shows like this that you
right.
have, you could further educate the community.
Right.
That's
Right.
what I would do.
Okay. Um, in your opinion, what ways can law enforcement build trust and improve community relations?
We have this thing about transparency. It's one of the things that President Barack Obama, in his 21st century policing, it's one of the pillars that he talks about is transparency.
Hmm.
I think police departments can do a lot of things. I think that they could, once again, equip officers with body cameras, make sure that the body camera policy is being followed. I think that their early warning system that some police departments have in play, they can enforce that early warning system. And if and when individuals are called into question, make that information available to the public.
Hmm.
Keep up with stats and statistics, stats, which are statistics,
Hmm.
as it relates to the people who you're coming in contact with, the people who you're encountering every single day.
Hmm.
For instance, if a community is predominantly white, then the police department that's serving that community, most of this numbers as it relates to the demographics of the people that they're coming in contact with is going to be white, simply because of the people who are in that community.
Right.
I, Once I say it again, that's just math, right?
Hmm. Right.
What are the chances? What's the ratio, right?
Hmm.
What's the chance that I will come into contact with an Asian American in a predominantly black community? We'll do the math.
Hmm.
And if the math, right, depending on how many people are Black and how many people are Asian, once you actually do the math and you're able to decipher, what are the chances, and what out of this many chances, you can rationalize that,
Mm-hmm.
and it mirrors and it connects with actually what happened in the community, then you don't have anything to complain about.
Right.
But if you see that in a predominantly Black community, that there are more whites being contacted by
Mm-hmm.
police, then that's something we need to look at,
Right.
right? Are we just patrolling that white neighborhood?
Right.
Or are
Right.
we just going to where those white people are, right? And
Mm-hmm.
vice versa. The racists,
The numbers don't lie.
the numbers don't lie.
The numbers don't lie. Yeah.
So that is a sensible approach, right? Once again, this is not to take away from, because we talked about culture in this
Right.
interview and the things that we can do culturally to be
Mm-hmm.
able to modify and to make the changes so
Mm-hmm.
that communities, once again, can trust the police departments and things of that nature.
Right.
But this is just something that you can do. And I've seen that be done in police departments where they look at their stats to make sure that they're in line with what is reasonable and what should be happening, to
Right.
make sure that officers are not targeting certain race groups or ethnic groups, people groups,
Right.
which is what we call them.
Mm-hmm.
Also, forums. Officers do things such as forums or open their doors to community activities, send in what we call the COPS unit or community oriented policing, individuals whose jobs is just to go into the neighborhood
Right.
and learn the community. Do more and more of that, then I do believe that we will see more of a connection again as it relates to community and police, and
Mm-hmm.
that relationship being fortified and being strengthened.
So let's flip the question. So what in your opinion, what can the public do to strengthen their relationship with law enforcement?
Make sure that they don't only show up when there's a problem, when they're
Mm-hmm.
knocking down the police department's doors. If
Mm-hmm.
there's a crime in the community and you really want to partner with the police department and information on that crime that occurred that they're trying to solve, go up there. Don't just let them see you when you're mad about
Mm-hmm.
something that one of their officers has done. But
Mm-hmm.
if you show up and you know that you could help them to solve crime, because the truth of the matter is we're all in the same community. They're working in the community that you live in.
Right. Right.
Everybody has a vested interest and wants to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, then what you should do is seek ways you can go up to the police department and help connect the police department with your community.
Right.
Knock on the door. Don't knock on just to give a complaint.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes go up there to give what we call an attaboy,
Mm-hmm.
or go up there to give a compliment, not just a complaint, but a compliment.
Right.
Sometimes we're so willing to critique and not willing to cooperate,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then that's where the button of the heads continue to come. But I believe just like there are wonderful police officers, I think they're wonderful community members, and they just want everybody to connect in such a way to where we can assist our police department, but at the same time, our police department can have respect for us.
Right.
And then now we can cohabitate. We could live here and you could work here. And when there's something going wrong, because, the chief has seen my face many times to say thank you, he most
Right.
certainly is willing to see my face
Mm-hmm.
to say, Chief, we got a problem.
So that goes back to building a relationship.
All day,
Okay.
every day.
Okay, I got two more questions. So,
Two more questions.
okay, so if I'm ever in a situation with police in which I don't feel safe, what does the law say that will protect me in that situation? What should I do?
Okay. So, if you're in a situation with a police officer and you do not feel safe, the first thing I'm going to tell you to do is just do what the officer tells you to do. Period. Right? Do what he tells you to do. But if you feel unsafe, ask for the officer's badge number.
Okay.
Ask for his name. Never put yourself in a situation where you make the situation contentious.
Okay.
Never do that, because now that's escalating the situation. And this is part of that culture once again.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things that calm voices can bring. There's certain things that, not fighting can bring, because if let's just be honest, if you fight a police officer, like physically fight a police officer, right? He or she may have tools that you may not have in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? So honestly, although you want your voice to be heard,
Mm-hmm.
there's a way you can do that. And this is what I teach, and still live,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's multiple cases that we've seen and we could talk about where the officer acted inappropriately,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, what initiated ultimately the officer's initial actions was responding to someone who was not compliant.
Mm-hmm.
There are situations, as we've seen in Chicago and other places, where the individual complied, and unfortunately the situation didn't end well, because those things will happen. I won't sit here and lie to you and say they won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But to your question, if you ever feel uncomfortable with an officer, you do what they say do. You do what you got to do to not cause a situation to escalate in
Mm-hmm.
emotions and words exchanging. You do what they say do, and you even do it overly. There's been times where I pulled over and I was overly. I mean, I got pulled, and even in our community, man, I pull over, let all my windows down, stick my hands directly out the window, and turn all the lights on in my car. And I'm the police. I do all of that so that it is clear that my actions is to comply. Period. You
Right.
know?
Can you ask for say someone else to come,
No,
or
so I was going to get to that. So after
okay.
you do what they say do, ask for their name and badge number. And if you feel uncomfortable, ask them for a supervisor.
Asking for a supervisor. Okay.
Yeah. If the supervisor is not available and can't come to you, then okay. If you got to go to jail, right? But still seek an opportunity to ask for the supervisor when you're bonded out or bailed out or whatever the situation is. Go to the police department, ask for a supervisor, or ask to make a complaint because you feel as if the officer did something inappropriate. We all have bosses, we all have managers, we all do, right?
Right.
And when there's something that needs to be done, it's a time and a place for everything. I used to tell everybody, even when I was writing the ticket, they wanted to argue back with me, back and forth. And I understand people are passionate about, I don't think I ran that light, or I don't think I was speeding. Of course, I don't expect for you necessarily to agree with this.
Yeah.
But this is not the place we should have court.
Right.
Obviously, this is my word against yours. So there's somebody in a black robe that we could handle this in front of, and they are called a judge. And they will judge the situation based on the evidence that I have that you did whatever I said that you did, and
Right.
vice versa. So those body cameras, it works. It don't
Mm-hmm.
only work necessarily for the officer, right, against a complaint that you may have against the officer, he or she, but it also works for you if the officer has done you wrong as well. So you want to ask for their badge number. You want to do what they say do. If you don't go to jail and they can't get a supervisor out there after you've asked for a supervisor, then go to the police department. Go to the police department with their name and their badge number, and tell somebody. Simple.
Okay. Well, we're at the end of the show, but I want
Already?
to. But I know already. I told you. Look, we can do a part two on this, but I do want to give you a moment to have it to ask if you have any last words for the community. If you want to say something to those that are viewing and those that will view this video in the future.
I think that the community that we live in right now, not just this local community, but let me just say our society,
Mm-hmm.
man, right now it's it's very stressed right now. People
Mm-hmm.
are stressed. They're stressed because we've gone through one of the hardest years of our lives in
Yeah.
2020. People have had to bury people and couldn't even attend their own family's funerals.
Yeah.
People have transitioned from this life and literally have had to do that in a hospital room by themselves. So a lot of family members are feeling guilty because of that.
Yeah.
People have lost jobs. People have lost, like I said, family members. It's been tough. We've gone through this, last year, in 1 year, it was pandemic, protest, and politics. Those are my three P's.
Yeah. That's
In a
true.
year of pandemic, protest, and politics, you want to do everything you can to insert positivity.
Hmm.
And so I would tell people, um, that in this season that we're in, you have to make sure that you're doing everything to become part of the solution and not the problem.
Yeah.
If you want to change it, then really pray. If you're a spiritual person, if you're just a person who are, you're um, into academics,
Hmm.
study to figure out ways that and for some of us, maybe now your new calling has shifted professions to be able to change the society that we live in.
Hmm.
My wife and I, we were at an exit, getting ready to get off an exit here locally, going towards Atlanta. And coming out of East Atlanta, it's gonna back up around Turner Hill and Evans Mill every day.
Yeah.
It's just gonna happen. So we were getting off at Evans Mill, and as we were getting off, other cars were getting off, and we were on the exit ramp.
Hmm.
And I could see in my side view mirror that I had enough time to get over before the traffic in that next lane was coming up on me.
Hmm.
And so, honestly, I did not signal. Bad Corey. I did not signal to get over, but there was a lot of room. They were coming off the ramp, and so I just dipped over because the line in the left hand side was backing up, and I wanted to inch on down. So I got over. Well, the person in the truck, it was a pickup truck. This was a
Hmm.
Caucasian male, had long hair. It was an old truck. He pulled up next to my door in the passenger side. He put his bumper up against my wife's door, and he proceeded to yelling at me. Why did you do that? Why did you get over? Why da da da? I mean, he was yelling. Now, I assume everybody has weapons in their car, and you know, um, I can only assume that this guy probably had a weapon in his car,
Hmm.
and I had a weapon in my car. Now, I didn't know what he was going to do. We call that road rage, and people have
Right.
been getting hurt over road rage. I tell people, don't
Hmm.
listen. Road rage, get over it. Just get off, go somewhere. Don't do it, because right now people are so tense. They're so tense because of a lot of things, because of
Hmm.
politics,
Hmm.
right? Because of protests and pandemic.
Right.
People are very tense right now, and so what I chose not to do was to equate or balance my decibel level and voice to his.
Hmm.
And I didn't choose to pull my weapon because I didn't know what he was doing when he tried to block into our vehicle. I
Right.
said, "Sir, I apologize for getting over in front of you. I really felt as if I had enough space and you hadn't come down the ramp yet." Well, that's not right. Da 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 da. He wanted to argue. I then identified myself as a police officer. I said, "Listen, I'm a police officer, and what you're doing right now as you're holding up traffic is very illegal." Then he told me, oh, his voice came all the way down.
Wow.
And then he said, "You know what? If I was to do that, would you have given me a ticket?" And I personally told him, "No, I probably wouldn't have given you a ticket, but I understand what you're saying."
Right.
He said, "Well, you're awfully calm." I said, "Because you are irate for both of us." I said, "I apologize. I was wrong. And I'm glad that we're safe and that you enjoy the rest of your day." There's clearly a situation where he perceived I was wrong. My perception was I was not wrong. Now, legally,
Right.
I was wrong for not, indicating that I was going to get over. But I also know I could have, engaged the lane
Hmm.
change very successfully. But
Hmm.
he felt another type of way, and my wife was scared. And she's like, "Why didn't you?" I said, "Because if I would have pulled a gun, because I thought that he was going to pull his. He would have pulled his. And then it would probably have been a different story for all of us.
Right.
Not worth it." So what I would say to our community is try to always, as much as you can, be solution oriented and not part of the problem. Always find ways where you could get a better understanding. Love the people that will allow you to love them, and pray as much as you can for our community leaders because they have awesome responsibility in this season. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you, Corey. I really appreciate it. And you gave a lot of good information. And I just hope that, the viewing audience has, listened intently and
Yes.
has, there's a lot of information. They can play this over and over again, right? And
Right.
then I'm going to also get your contact information out because I do know we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I do know through what is it? I forgot it was on here on my cheat sheet. But
Okay.
you have a community program
Oh,
where you go.
oh, yeah. So we have the Hambrick Foundation. We have this thing that we call Tough. It's called Thinking Under Fire.
Yeah, they can understand.
Where
That's what I was
yeah,
trying to
Tough Thinking Under Fire.
yeah.
Where we go out and we train community organizations, and we answer their questions. We kind of do what we're doing right now with you, and we
Okay.
teach them on things that they can do to enhance, their safety in dealing with law enforcement officers, as well as giving them the officer's perspective as well.
Yeah.
So
So I'll make sure that I get that information out because I know there's a lot of, different organizations, Greek organizations,
mhm.
different schools
Yeah,
that, you could actually go in and partner with to get
yeah,
this information out. Right. So we'll make
yeah.
sure that we continue to partner together
Yes,
to get the information out. Right.
yeah,
Because
yes.
knowledge is power.
It is.
Applied knowledge brings transformation. I say
Come
that all
on,
the time.
come on now.
We do know that knowledge is power. We got
That's
that.
right. That's
But
right.
if you don't apply the knowledge, the transformation will never come about.
That's right.
So, yeah, so we'll continue to partner. But I just want to say thank you. I know we're a little bit over time, but I thank the viewing audience for hanging in there with us to get the information. We will see you same time, same place next Wednesday, 7 o'clock. Good night.